Assalamu alaikum and welcome to a special broadcast on the 76th commemoration of Nakba on Salam Media with Fazlin Fransman-Taliep. This evening we're joined by a special journalist based in Ramallah, Fareed Taamallah. Assalamu alaikum Fareed and welcome to Salam Media.
Walaikum assalam. Thank you for having me.
It is obviously a very difficult day, just in terms of one reflecting on history, but also obviously just reflecting on what is currently happening in the broader Palestine. What is your, initial response to just the sentiments of today being the 76th anniversary or commemoration, probably better word, of the Nakba?
Yeah, as you know, Palestinians usually they commemorate the anniversary of Nakba on the May 15 every year, and this year is the 76th anniversary of the catastrophe, the Nakba, that took place 1948, when the state of Israel was established, and like 750,000 Palestinians were displaced, and hundreds of Palestinian villages and communities were erased. Until today, these displaced people are not being able to go back home to their communities and their homelands. So these 750 people now become around 7 million people who are refugees, Palestinian refugees living either in the historic Palestine or in the diaspora. So every year, Palestinians commemorate this painful anniversary with many activities, remembrance of those who were displaced and killed by the Israelis. And this year, it is very special. I mean, it's different from every year because we are living a new Nakba in Gaza mainly and in the West Bank, where Palestinians 3,500 35,000 people have been killed since October 7th, and around 2 million people are displaced in Gaza, while the Palestinians in the West Bank are also living in very bad circumstances. It is true that it's less bad than in Gaza, but still, Palestinians in the West Bank also are witnessing some kind of Nakba, and we are living under very bad conditions. Mainly settlements and roadblocks and the Israeli military occupation and the settlers and confiscation of land. So we think that this moment when a new Nakba, which we consider as maybe the most bloodiest and worst Nakba that we had ever been witnessing since 1948.
So I want us perhaps to just look for a second, I think, at the last 76 years. I think one of the probably the biggest misnomers is that, 1948 happened, people were displaced, both displaced with inside, Palestine, and also displaced outward into the rest of the world. But there's sometimes an assumption, I think, that happens with a lot of people, where they assume that that type of displacement happened once, and that it isn't necessarily a continuous, or hasn't been a continuous displacement. And I want us to kind of zoom into the West Bank, and specifically the type of strategies perhaps that is currently being employed, whereby people are still systematically being displaced, a slow Nakba, whereas vis-a-vis what we're seeing in Gaza is obviously, something that's a little bit more aggressive. If you can unpack that for us.
Ongoing Nakba. It's an ongoing Nakba. It started in 1948, but it is still going along this long history. Military occupation. I, 50 years old, I had been born and raised and lived in the West Bank under Israeli occupation. and we are always witnessing. As a Palestinian who are living in the West Bank, I always witness this Nakba of more and more confiscation of lands. We are not allowed to use the main roads in the West Bank, which is totally given for the Israeli settlers who are living in the same geographic area, but they are, let's say, enjoying all the rights, and they are using the main roads and the water and resources, while Palestinians are denied using the main roads, and our lands are being confiscated, and more settlements are being built on our stolen land. And since October 7th, all this bad situation getting worse and worse. And for example, the last year in October, we have the olive harvest. Many farmers, like dozens of farmers, around 1 million dunams of olive trees has not been. The farmer could not harvest their olives on these lands, and also the settlers are attacking Palestinian villages and also attacking Palestinian communities. Every day almost we have Israeli and harvest, and they are killing people, Palestinian people, under the protection of the Israeli army. The problem is that it's not only that we are under attack by settlers, but also the Israeli army is there. I mean, we are not. If they are only settlers, we can confront and we can resist and struggle against them. But the problem is that the Israeli army is usually is there, is present, and they are not interfering unless Palestinians are confronting the settlers. Once we try to confront and to resist the settlers, the army, the Israeli army, with guns and weapons, they attack and they kill Palestinians. Today, in Ramallah, where I live, a Palestinian was killed next to my house while we were like in a march to commemorate the Nakba. We were marching from the city center to the Israeli settlement next to Ramallah, and an Israeli sniper shot and dead Palestinian young man. He is only 20 years old. He is a student at Birzeit University. So he was killed on the spot while we were like just marching. We did nothing to attack or to annoy the Israeli army. There were snipers shooting people from a long distance, which means that we are not harming them. We are not forming any kind of danger for them, but they are killing. What happened today in Ramallah is happening everywhere in the West Bank. And in addition to that, like thousands of Palestinians have been arrested, and they are arrested in Israeli prison, including kids, children, women, elderly people. So this Nakba is not something happened once and it's finished, but it's still ongoing along 76 years, and we are living this every day. But this year, as I said before, it is more difficult. The situation is very, very difficult, and we had never witnessed anything similar to what is going on now. The Israeli army is becoming more brutal. They are more savage, and it's very easy for them to kill and to shoot any Palestinian under the pretext of security danger. But really, the lack of accountability make these soldiers more. Their hands are more light on the trigger to kill any Palestinian without accountability, without punishment.
So I think one of the key things or the key arguments that is raised every year with regards to the Nakba commemoration is the concept of right of return. And so we know that there's a lot of Palestinians in the diaspora. And generally, I think people don't juxtaposition that aspect, that one of the key demands that Palestinians make is the ability to have the right of return. And when you juxtapose that with, the Israeli policy of Aliyah, where Jewish people or people of Jewish descent in any way, except of course if they're of Jewish descent but Muslim, and they're from anywhere around the world, and they can come and obviously come and become a citizen of the so-called Republic of Israel. How do you juxtapose that within the context of specifically the demand for the right of return for Palestinians in the diaspora?
Unfortunately, the right of return for Palestinian refugees have been replaced by the Israelis with the right of return for the Jews around the world. So now the people who were displaced, or the dissidents of the people who were displaced, are not allowed. They are denied the right to come back to their homelands and their hometowns. While any Jew around the world, I mean in New York or in Argentina or in South Africa, has the right to come back to live in Israel and to get the citizenship on the spot, while Palestinians are living in the diaspora, and even not only in the diaspora, but also Palestinian refugees who are living in the West Bank or in Gaza. They are like not far away from their hometowns, but they are not allowed, not even to go back and settle in their villages, but also to visit. They are not allowed to visit their hometowns and to see them. And the people who are in Gaza, who are now under this displacement and new catastrophe, are 80% of the people of Gaza are refugees. They are originally they came from the towns surrounding Gaza, and they are now stuck in Gaza, and they had never been allowed to go back to their hometowns, which usually is like few kilometers from Gaza. So on the other hand, the state of Israel is trying to undermine the UNRWA, which is the UN agency which is responsible for Palestinian refugees. This year, Israel is trying to undermine and to stop the working of the UNRWA, and accusing UNRWA of anti-Semitism, and accusing them of terrorism. Not because the UN or the UNRWA is doing something like that, but because Israel politically, they have the intention to erase the right of return. And as long as the UNRWA is still there as an international agency, it means that the right of return is still there, and it's like symbolize the right of return. And Israel is targeting the demonization and to vanish the whole UNRWA as an agency, and to stop their work. And 3 days ago, the settlers in Jerusalem, they set fire on the main headquarters of the UNRWA in Jerusalem. And that forced the UNRWA to close their headquarters in Jerusalem. And as you know, in the news also in Gaza, the UNRWA is not allowed by Israel to work and to provide services and healthcare and relief and food for the Gazan people. The main goal of the Israelis is to vanish and to stop and to kill the UNRWA, which represents the right of return for Palestinians.
So I think one of the and obviously the media attention, a lot of the media attention is at the moment, obviously, and rightfully so, on Gaza. There is obviously a genocide that's taking place. But there is an argument, I think, generally that is made, is that, whenever the media attention is so heavily on Gaza, there's definitely something happening, in the West Bank. And so my question is twofold. We saw, just a week ago, Al Jazeera offices being closed, and yourself being a journalist. I want to know, what is it like to operate, I think, as a journalist within the West Bank, specifically your ability to report, especially within in the current dynamic of what you've spoken about around the intensified aggression from the occupying forces?
Look, first of all, any Palestinian journalist, I am a journalist, but also I am a Palestinian citizen. I'm a Palestinian, so I am a target for the Israelis, regardless of what I do. I'm a farmer, a journalist, a teacher, whatever. This is number one. Number two, that the Palestinian journalists are suffering also, let's say, an extra layer of oppression by the Israelis, because they are targeted. And you remember Shireen Abu Akleh of Al Jazeera, she was killed 2 years ago, even before October 7th. She was killed by the Israelis in cold blood, and nobody was sent to the court to trial for killing a Palestinian journalist. She was a Palestinian journalist. She's a woman. She's a Christian, and she works with Al Jazeera. All these things did not prevent the Israelis from targeting her and killing her. So you can imagine what can happen for any Palestinian journalist. We are not allowed to do our job. We don't have free access to information, and also we are targeted. And many journalists, they are afraid to put their jackets that show that they are journalists, because they will be a target. It should be the opposite. If you are a journalist and you're putting the helmet and this vest of showing that you are a press, should be like immune, or you have immunity, some kind of immunity. But what is happening here is the opposite. If you are a journalist and you have this helmet and vest that show that you are a journalist, you will be a target for Israelis, not only in Gaza but also in the West Bank. And Palestinian journalists, like I think since the beginning of the war, around 120 or 130 journalists was killed by the Israelis during this war. So we are part of these people. And also we have also more danger, because we are trying to show the world what is happening here. So the Israelis are trying to silence any voice that is showing the world what is happening here. On the other side, also the mainstream media, the Western mainstream media is very biased against Palestinians, and they are always focusing on the Israeli narrative, and they show that the Israelis are victims of the Palestinian terrorism, while the social media give more space. But also the social media, which is giving more space for Palestinian journalists and Palestinians in general, it's also these mainstream social media like Facebook and Instagram and YouTube, they are restricting the Palestinian content. And we as journalists, I can feel that when I publish any story about Palestine, the number of people who can see and read and comment is very few. So we are not reaching the audience. While the TikTok, which is the Chinese platform, social media platform, is more flexible with Palestinians. And now the Israelis and the Americans are trying to shut down and to make it out of law to use TikTok. So they are trying to silence any voice of the Palestinian people. And we see that this new generation in the West, I mean the students in the universities, they call them Generation Z, Gen Z. They have more access, and they are getting their information from social media, mainly TikTok and Telegram. And now in America, I you know that the Americans are trying to enact a new law to prevent TikTok from working in the US. And even in Palestine, if you have TikTok or Telegram in your mobile, and in the checkpoints, the Israelis, they investigate and they check our mobiles. And if we have Telegram or TikTok, you might be subject to be arrested or to be harmed or denied access to the city or to the village, which means that they are targeting any kind of information, providing information to the public, especially to the international public opinion. And this has been the case along many years, but now it's intensifying during this war, and it makes our job more difficult as journalists.
So you mentioned, I think earlier on in the discussion, Brother Fareed, that you're 50 years old, right? And so you obviously didn't live through the Nakba in 76. And there's a particular generation that obviously has the living memory of that era, of that particular point in time. The question is, how do you carry the lively and the importance of this or the significance of this event to the younger generations that are a bit of a distance? I mean, you're obviously you're very close to the generation that lived through it, but for the younger generation, they're growing up, and many of them will never possibly encounter somebody that actually lived through it. What would your what would you say is the strategies to ensure that there's a living memory of a time when there wasn't an occupation?
Yeah, the problem is that after like 70 years of occupation, all those people who witnessed the Nakba and even who witnessed the Naksa in 1967 are now becoming like 80s or 85, 90. So, and most of them has already passed away. So the generation who witnessed the Nakba, who has still these memories about Palestine before the Nakba, are dying now and they are disappearing, and only few people are still alive. We tried along the last years to do all this documentation of the testimonies of those people who witnessed the Nakba. So we wrote it and we took most of this information from those people. I myself did a project like 5 years ago. I met like around 30 people who witnessed the Nakba, and I wrote all their stories and I have photos of them. And I'm trying to revive this memory. We Palestinians have a very good memory, and we are trying to plant this memory in our kids and the new generation. So we are trying to teach our children about Palestine before the Nakba, about the importance of the right of return. So now, if you go to any refugee camp, whether in the West Bank, in Gaza, in the diaspora, and you ask any kid who is like 10 years old, you ask him, "Where are you from?" He will not say that I am from Jenin refugee camp. He will say, "I am from Lifta, or I am from
Mm,
Haifa, or from Yafa,
mm,
the original hometown of their parents or even grandparents." So people are, even now, for the new generation, I think it's the fourth generation now of refugees, are still dreaming of the return, and they have this ambition of going back home to their hometowns. And also on the other side, for my kids, for example, my father was born in Haifa in the 1948. My father was born 1931. He was born in Haifa, and he passed away before he achieved his right of return to live in Haifa. And he was buried out of Haifa in another village. But I am his son, and also my kids, the grandchildren, that they know that we belong to Haifa. And one day it's our destiny that we our faith that we will go back to our hometown. Maybe it's not in my lifetime, but I am pretty sure that that will happen one day. And this faith of the right of return is still reviving in our memories, in our hearts, and that's what keep
mm.
us living, and we keep us struggling to live and to go back to our homeland one day. So I mean, even for the new generation, the third and the fourth generation of refugees, the dream of the right of return is still fresh, and people are still. If you ask anyone, would you like to go back home to your hometown? They will say yes, and they know all the details about their villages, the name of the village, the location of the village, how it looked like. Maybe they have pictures of their hometown in their houses, and everybody is still carrying the key of
Mhm.
return. And I think an idea about how Palestinians are how they see the right of return, and how hopeful they are to exercise and to achieve this right of return.
Mhm. I think the project that you mentioned, Fareed, is so important, and the reason why I say that is one of the narratives in the West, specifically around, and obviously we know with Nakba, there's also the currently on the other side being celebrated Israeli Independence Day, and the what their narrative that they push, whether it is in their own schools or even in Western media, is that 1948 and prior was, a land without a people for a people without a land, and that is becomes their sense of justification. And I want to juxtapose that to South Africa, because in apartheid South Africa, we had a very similar argument that was made when white farmers entered, sort of the northern part of South Africa. They were saying there was nobody there, so we just occupied and took the land. I don't know, how do you deal with those types of narratives, especially when you're trying to get, as you say, you have a project of living memory to make sure that people know where they come from, and then on the flip side you have a narrative that says there were no people there.
That is expired now. Nobody will buy this in the 21st century. Maybe they succeeded to convince or to tell this propaganda at the early years after the Nakba, but now it is, I think, this narrative of propaganda, Israeli propaganda, is not working anymore, simply because there are like 7 million Palestinian refugees who are, like, now they know their hometowns. Palestinians before the Nakba were living here in peace. I mean, Palestinians, Judaism is a religion, it's not ethnicity, while being a Palestinian is an ethnicity. So you can be a Palestinian Jewish, Palestinian Muslim, Palestinian Christian. All of them were living here in Palestine before the Nakba and before the Zionism and the Zionist project. They were living in harmony and peace. There was no difference between a Jewish Palestinian or Muslim Palestinian. They were all living together. What happened in Europe with this Holocaust and all this anti-Semitism in Europe has nothing to do with Palestinians. We had no problem of anti-Semitism or genocide against Jewish. They were living here peacefully. And even when these Jewish came from Europe during the 30s and 40s, escaping from Germany or from Austria because they want to survive the Holocaust, we welcomed them here in Palestine because we give them the refuge. We think that they are refugees and we saving their lives. And Palestinians, generally speaking, are hospitable people. They are very nice and welcoming people. So if anybody is in a problem and he's in a blight, we welcome them. It's part of our traditions is to welcome any stranger and to provide him with food, shelter, whatever. So when these Zionists came to Palestine early 30s and 40s, before we realized that there is a big project to settle in Palestine and to occupy Palestine, we were very nice with those people. We provide them food, we provide them shelter. We were trying to show them around and to host them in our houses. And that's what the people that I met in this project told me. They told me that there was some Israelis coming from Poland, and we hosted them and we feed them, and they were sleeping in our houses. And on the day of Nakba, when they came to attack, when these Zionist gangs attacked the Palestinian villages, they discovered that those people who used to be our guests and we hosted them, they are spies. They were spying on the Palestinian communities, and they are providing security intelligence for the these Zionist gangs, and they were part of a big plan that we were a little bit naive, let's say, but they were planning for this, and we were a victim of being hospitable and being nice with those refugees. And if you look to the photos and pictures and stories from Palestine before the Nakba in Haifa and Yafa, you can see there was airports, there was cinemas, theaters, even radio stations, TV stations. There was a civilization. There was a people who were living peacefully, modern people, farmers, teachers, doctors, engineers, and all this happened, as you know, out of sudden. It was like a replanned catastrophe for Palestinians. And Britain, the UK, was part of this catastrophe, and now we are living this since 76 years old.
Mm-hmm. So Fareed, if you were to give any person around the world a bird's eye view into the lived reality of a Palestinian in the West Bank, and here I mean it from different aspects because whether it is, housing, can you buy, are you able to buy new housing? What does that look like? Or for example, sort of imports or exports, starting new businesses. Like what is the lived reality and the ability? Because these are things that if you're in South Africa or many places around the world, you take for granted. They're given. I want to start a business, I can do it. I want to build on and extend my house, I want to do it. And so I'm just trying to perhaps give the world a bird's eye view into what are those everyday realities and battles that you have to fight that aren't necessarily the big ones, but they actually are things that we sometimes take for granted.
Yes, look, in the West Bank, the most difficult thing is the freedom of movement. We in the West Bank, we don't have this right of movement. I mean, if I want to travel from Ramallah to my hometown, the village of Kira, it's like 50 kilometers from Ramallah. I need like 2-3 hours to reach there because I cannot use the main roads. There are lots of checkpoints. And also these settlers are taking more and more lands. And so every time I go to my village, I see a new settlement, or the already existed settlements are expanding on our land. So if you ask anyone in the West Bank, what is the main problem you face as a Palestinian under occupation, he will answer you very quickly. The roadblocks, I mean the checkpoints and the right to move, and the settlements. There are lots of settlements being built on our private land. It's like our plots of land, our property. They just come and take over the land without any prior notice, or they have the right to come and take the land and to confiscate the land. And also we have like this shortage of water, not because we have a water crisis. I mean, in Palestine, we have in Ramallah, we have a very good rainfall. We have like around 650 millimeters of rain every year, which means that it's very good. We have water, but the unfair distribution of water makes that the Palestinian per capita consumption of water is something like 80 liters per day per capita, 80, while settlers are consuming 500 liters of water per capita daily, which means it's like they are consuming like it's 5 or 6 doubles of the Palestinian water. And that causes a lot of problems for Palestinians, even though we are living in the same geographic area. I mean, we are living in the same, the Palestinian village is on the other side of the road. There is shortage of water, but on the other side where the settlement is, it's like a plenty of water, and the water is there. They have swimming pools, they have irrigating the gardens. So it's not about water crisis, but more about unfair distribution of water. And also the laws that that are used are different. I mean, when you are a Palestinian and you are like committing a crime, or you kill an Israeli, they will use the Ottoman laws or the British laws. They will come, they will arrest the family members of the killer. They will demolish the house of the Palestinian who killed or suspected, not killed, he suspected that he killed Israeli. While when the Israelis kill Palestinians, nobody go to the court. No, nothing will happen. No, there is no punishment, nothing. So, and this is by law. I mean, the laws that are used for Palestinians in the West Bank are different from the laws which is working for Israeli settlers who are living in the same geographic area. And also, we have no airports. We are not controlling the borders. If I want to leave to travel from Palestine to outside, I have to go through Israeli control to Jordan, and then from Jordan I can travel anywhere. But we are not allowed to use the Israeli airports. We are not allowed to use to have access to the beaches. I mean, the coast area is like 30 kilometers from my home here, but I had never been to the beach, to the coast. And my children usually they had never been to the coast area to see a beach. If you ask any kid in the West Bank, what is your dream? He will say to go to the beach. If you ask any Palestinian in Gaza, what is your dream? He will say, my dream is to see a mountain, because they are stuck in Gaza. They are stuck in this coast area, very small area, and they had never seen any mountain. While in the West Bank, we are mountains, but we have no beach, and we had never been to the beach, even though the beach is like half an hour driving from our city or our village. So this is the life how we live. But the good news that even though all these atrocities and all these difficulties we are facing, we never think about leaving this country. We are staying here. The fact that we are living here, farming, teaching our children, marry, have theaters, we have play football, we live our life. Even if we just do this, no resistance, just to live here and to stay in this land, we consider this as struggle and resistance. And we have no intention to leave this country. I mean, if you ask any Palestinian, okay, maybe he like to go outside to work, to travel, to tour other countries, but immigration and leaving this country is not an option for most of the Palestinians.
I think, you mentioned that most of the people that live in West Bank now, or like in the towns that they live, whether it is Jenin refugee camp, or the people in Gaza actually come from different parts of the greater pre-1948 Palestine. That is something I think that sometimes people forget, and I want to zoom into Gaza here, for example. It's obviously a very small enclave. And, if you listen to the testimonies of people that speak about living memory, they'll talk about, the villages they come from outside. I think, now the question is, within the context of what is happening currently post October 7th, I think the first question in this is, how does, the Palestinians in the West Bank sort of connect in terms of the lived reality of the Palestinians in Gaza? And I say that because you are both landlocked, as you said. It's there's settlements and things between where the West Bank and Gaza, and so there is some sort of identity that crosses the border. Well, not real borders, but yeah, that crosses over. But you're kind of landlocked, and in very many instances, very difficult, to go from Gaza to the West Bank or vice versa. How, I think the question really is how is the community in the West Bank, I think, sort of processing what is happening in Gaza at the moment?
Look, first of all, we are one people. Despite all this separation by Israel, and by the way, Israel is succeed to separate Palestinians. I mean, they are classifying Palestinians into different classifications. So we have Palestinians in 1948, the Palestinian Israelis who are holding Israeli citizenship. We have the Palestinians in Jerusalem who are just residing in Jerusalem, but they are not citizens. We have the Palestinians in the West Bank, which I am part of, that we are not allowed to get into Jerusalem or to the Green Line or to Gaza. And there are the people of Gaza, the Palestinians in Gaza, who are at the least of this list, of this classification. They are in the worst. They are in the worst, let's say, situation. So the Israelis are brilliant with classifying Palestinians. They do classification. And they try to, after they classify Palestinians into different groups, they don't allow any mechanism. They have a very strong mechanism to separate every group from the other group. So for us who are living in the West Bank, we cannot go to Jerusalem. So we cannot communicate or marry Palestinians from Jerusalem or from 1948. And we cannot go to Gaza. And the people of Gaza, they cannot come to the West Bank. So this interaction between the one people. Usually, if you are South African, you are in Johannesburg, you can marry a man from Cape Town or from Durban, but it's not the case here. We Palestinians, if you want to fall in love with anyone, you should choose where he is from. If you are from Jerusalem, you cannot fall in love with somebody from the West Bank because you cannot live together. The one from Jerusalem, they cannot come to the West Bank to live here, and we in the West Bank, we cannot go and live in Jerusalem. In Gaza, it's totally different. Gaza is like 50 kilometers, 60 kilometers from Ramallah, but you feel that it's on the other planet because 99% of the Palestinians in the West Bank had never visited Gaza, not because we don't want to go there, but because we are not allowed to go to Gaza. And it's the same for the people of Gaza. If you need to go to Gaza, you need a permit, and this is most likely, it is like, I'm not talking about now. Now it is totally impossible. But I mean, before the war, it is most likely 99% of the applications for permits to visit Gaza is denied, and the people of Gaza they don't have the right to come to the West Bank. And we in the West Bank, we cannot visit Jerusalem. Jerusalem people, they cannot go to Gaza. Gaza, they cannot come to the 1948. So we are living nearby. Palestine is a small country. I mean, when it comes to geography, it is like 27,000 kilometers. It's a very small country. But we are separated and we are far from each other. We have no interaction. And the Israelis, they designed and they set and enacted many laws to prevent any kind of interaction between the people, the Palestinian people within themselves. So this separation between the people in the West Bank, to come to your question, this separation after years and years of separation between the people in the West Bank and the people of Gaza, you can find that there are some kind of difference between the mentality, the social activities, even the cuisine, the food is now becoming different. The people of Gaza are more close to Egypt. They have the only way to go outside of Gaza is to go to Egypt. So you feel them. I visited Gaza once, and I felt that the people of Gaza are more, I mean, when it comes to social activities, to their food, it is more close to Egypt than to the West Bank. So you feel that this relationship is being cut by the Israelis. They want to separate and to cut all these ties between the Palestinian people. But this spiritual and this soul of solidarity and that we are one people is still very strong. But we have no, I mean, in the West Bank, it's very difficult for us to see that our brothers in Gaza are being slaughtered and under genocide, while we can do nothing. We have no tool. We cannot go and help. We cannot provide them with food. We have plenty of food. You know, the West Bank is very fertile land. We have lots of agriculture, and maybe we have extra like vegetables, but we cannot send them to Gaza because Israel is blocking Gaza. They are separating the West Bank from Gaza. That put big pressure. I mean, mentally wise, we feel exhausted, we feel frustrated, we feel down because we cannot help our brothers who are like 60. I mean, the people of Hebron, it's like 20 kilometers from Gaza. They can see the smoke and the bombs in Gaza. They can hear it, but we cannot access. We cannot reach them to help or to provide food or to provide milk or medicine. So this is frustrating. I mean, this put more pressure on Palestinians in the West Bank because we are very close, but we are very far from them.
I think, and my final question, Brother Fareed, is, you know, we're living in a time, and you mentioned it earlier, where the narrative of Palestinians are, you know, is starting to, you know, be more widely known. I think just a few days ago, former Secretary of State of the United States, Hillary Clinton, said that because of the TikTok, and you made reference to it, because of all these young people that are being more informed on TikTok, that are obviously getting the news directly without the filter of sort of Western propaganda. And so her argument was that young people are being misinformed by TikTok. And that also that the Middle East conflict, and obviously here she's referring to the obviously establishment of Israel, is more complicated than however long one can explain things on TikTok. Do you think that there's a wave of change taking place around the world just with regards to the Palestinian story? And what do you think the impact of that could be?
I totally agree with you that this social media, even with this American social media like Facebook and Instagram and YouTube, even with all these restrictions, but still the Palestinian story has like a chance to spread our narrative is there. So you can see that live what is happening in Gaza now, or I can do like live stream now from Ramallah, where are like there are confrontation or the settlers are attacking Palestinians. So this social media, it gives a chance for Palestinians to show their story to the world. And I mean, what is happening now in the West, especially in the West, with these students in the universities, this is the result of that this young generation are getting their information not from the CNN or Fox News or Los Angeles Times or New York Times. They are getting their information and their knowledge from the social media, mainly from TikTok, and these platforms are giving real information without censorship, and that gives a big push for the Palestinian narrative, and it is showing the world what is really happening in the ground. And because with these mobiles, you can take photo or video from your window when the Israeli army comes to Ramallah. Many people take videos from the windows to show the world what is exactly happening on the minute, on the spot. And all this access to giving information is changing the whole thing. I mean, the Israeli propaganda is now being surrounded and pushed to the corner because there's the CNN. I mean, this guy in Gaza, Mu'taz Azaizi, he has 17 million followers on Instagram, while CNN has more than, and you have dozens of people like Mu'taz Azaizi in Gaza, many, dozens, maybe hundreds of people who have like millions of followers on Instagram or TikTok. And you can see that there are many videos on TikTok. You see that there are 40 million saw this video, which is more than all the Fox News and CNN and all these Western mainstream media. So I think yes, my answer simply is yes, that the social media is changing the whole situation, the whole story. It's changing the narrative. Palestinian narrative now becoming stronger because people simply they can see it, and we Palestinians, and in addition, not only Palestinians but also those people who are around the world in Europe, in America, they are helping Palestinians. I mean, these activists who are supporting the Palestinian people and justice. They are also helping with like advertising and publishing the story of the Palestinian people, and this make big difference.
Mm. This is our 76 years of Nakba commemoration broadcast on Salam Media. We spoke to journalist from the West Bank in Palestine, Fareed Taamallah, and we unpacked just a little bit about the dynamics of life within the West Bank, but also how to maintain the living memory of Palestinians that lived through the Nakba 76 years ago, but because that generation is getting older, and that generation is obviously dying out. There's obviously a need to preserve an idea and an understanding of life prior to the occupation. Fareed, shukran so much for joining us. Your insights were really, really valuable, and we hope to have you back soon, inshallah.
Thank you very much, and my big salam to the people of South Africa.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.